motion.
Do you get in trouble when you come to bowling?
That's what I heard.
I feel.
I'm getting emails from her this morning.
Oh, yes.
I'm assuming she's got a 1:30 meeting.
When we tell police officers when they come, isn't it like, you didn't bring us a ticket?
Does it need to be?
Really, no ticket?
No.
It's just a good thing to have, just to set.
Next
not
meeting,
passive
next
aggressive
meeting.
at all.
I'm taking notes right here.
And I'm gonna have his email address, so I can let him know.
Every
Yeah.
second month.
So maybe just say that if you want.
So I'm hearing you leaving our.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead.
I'm out of here in
Get
July.
started.
July.
Everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
So you were supposed to
You
be
got
attention now?
a,
Yes, pay attention. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Is it time to pay attention?
You have just whenever you guys are ready to start.
What?
I love that we all get along so well. That's good.
I stopped watching my Netflix
It's
movie.
gonna serve us well in an emergency.
Let it go.
Okay, it's 1:08. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Does anyone have any late items for the agenda? Anything they want to discuss today? With the crowd, you want to add something?
I don't know if it's part of it, but I wanted to, I don't know if I brought it up before, but what we have in place for one island or when wires are down.
Okay, let's just add it under new business. 7.2, down wires.
Down wires, it's bigger than that as far as like, if it's an earthquake, are we relying on hydro to come here? What if the ferry terminal's not working?
That's what else, sure.
Ferry terminal.
Alright, that's 7.2. Does anyone else, Bruce, let's save it for that part. Does anyone else have anything you want to add? Agenda items, things to discuss? There's lots going on lately, no? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? Thank you, Bruce. And second, thank you, Tess. Okay, great. And I'm sure you all had a chance to read over the minutes that
Yep.
Steph sent out. Anyone have any edits to the minutes from the last meeting? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Thanks, Bruce. Everyone's frantically reading. Anyone want to second that?
Sure.
Thanks, Rush. Okay. Thank you, Steph, for the minutes. I see that there are no members of the public here today, so we'll skip straight to 4.1. I wanted to change the meeting schedule for this group. So as you know, initially we committed to meeting monthly when the committee was first created, and we thought that we would sort of see how that went. It seems to me that that's no longer necessary. Last time we met was in October, to give you an indication. So I'm proposing that we change the regularly scheduled meetings to every second month. Does anyone not have a problem with that? Does anyone think that they have a better, different, other idea? Does that work, not work? Comments, suggestions?
Every second, on the same day, like every Wednesday?
I'm still thinking Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month at 1. We kind of got used to that. But just, I'd rather, yeah, that people sort of expected to have to come and wait to see if it's canceled, if that makes sense.
And one can be added in case we have like some sort of.
Absolutely.
So that's 2 months today.
Yeah. And actually, the April meeting, I fly out of town that night. So we might have to move that one earlier in the day. Just April, the rest would be as scheduled. And then we won't meet in July and August.
April 8th.
So April and
11
then
a.m.
June.
Is 9 a.m. too early for you guys? Does anyone mind 9 a.m.?
Let's get going at 6.
Just in April.
3 in the morning.
3 a.m.
Going all you like.
Okay, so the
9 a.m.
next,
I got.
the next meeting will be, in that council chambers is available.
09?
Sorry, Steph.
No, it was good.
So that'll be April the 3rd. It's a Wednesday at 9 a.m.
No.
There's a
It's
manager's meeting.
So 10:30, that's over.
Okay.
So we'll do it on the safest.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that works. I always get Sophie to chair it if I'm not here. So then again in June, we'll skip July and August, again in September, skip October, again in November. But I'll put all this, we'll put this in the minutes so that you know.
So
June,
June,
and then
September.
June, September.
Yeah.
Okay.
April 3rd.
Yeah. June
Oh,
5th,
no.
and then follow us.
In June, September,
Yes.
and then November. Okay.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
I'll live with it.
We can also always strike subcommittees and meet in smaller groups if there are special or particular projects that we're working on, so it doesn't mean we won't be doing any work in the interim. Okay, and I'm not entirely certain that we have a forum today, so I'm not gonna, I don't think, make a formal, oh, I guess okay. So, can you do the wording?
Yeah, that the Emergency Program Management Committee resolved to meet on the the first Wednesday of every second month at 1:00 p.m., excepting April, at which the meeting will be at 11:00 a.m.
Yeah, does that, can you please just chair this meeting?
Olivia Weaver,
I'll move that.
seconder.
Emma,
Second.
all in favor? Okay, so, good times. All right, so quickly review the action items from October. Yeah.
Okay, work on business continuity presentation for the EDC Summit? No. Okay. It is not on the summit. Number 2. Number 3, research the 3 attempts to update the BIM fire prevention bylaw.
That was done.
Done.
And I have that research available to pass on to the bylaw manager of bylaw,
Okay,
once he's ready to take that on.
so I'll add that as an action.
So what prevented the revisions, can I ask? What was,
It seemed to me just broadly, generally, the impression I got was that they weren't sort of the bare minimum. They sought to do a lot more than most or other similar municipalities were doing in terms of their fire prevention bylaw. And I think numerous councils, or council at the time, thought it was just going a bit too far. Mind you, I did this research months ago, so my
Your
recollection's
recollection is-
a little bit hazy, but that was the long and the short of it from what I could tell.
Find out if there is more advanced training for rapid damage assessment.
Yeah, so there isn't right now. BC Housing isn't offering their rapid damage assessment coordinator course at the moment. The whole training program's being revamped because, well, it's being revamped. So currently there isn't, to my knowledge, certainly not through BC Housing.
Determine status of the BC PAD program.
So this was raised, Cherie thought that, I think the PAD program was closed or canceled, and I was under a different understanding, so let's just leave that on until Cherie can come back and we can speak with her about it.
Talk to the Rotary Club regarding Pulse Point app program. Willow?
Pardon me, sorry, I got North Bend RCMP texting me about some suspicious phone LED.
Oh. Talk to the Rotary Club about Pulse Point app program.
Yeah, there was a communication with the, Vaughn, is it?
Fine, yeah.
Vaughn, and he was gonna look into it, but I never got a response back as to what the update was.
Okay.
For that outgoing.
Yeah, I think he was gonna check on them, but
You can
I think he did.
assign it to me if you want, and I might follow up with Amanda Alcleon and see if she can, because
Okay.
I can't remember where it was left. Unless you want to continue to plow ahead with it.
I'd rather, if you don't mind.
You'd
Take that
rather
off
do
your
it?
plate. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
No, I don't mind.
Wait.
I'm delighted. So maybe reach out to Amanda because you might get more traction.
Amanda who?
Alcleon,
Okay.
OCK. I'll share her contact info
Yeah.
with you.
Communicate information regarding the Pulse Point app whenever possible and encourage subscription. Everybody. For example, at the ESS and first aid training events.
Done.
Pulse Point app, okay. Involve BC Ambulance in the helijet landing process. Ian and Jen.
So I think they were saying they wanted to be kept in, they wanted us, BC Ambulance wanted us to keep them abreast of what was going on with the heliport. I think that was Cherie and Con specifically. Have we given them any update?
No updates yet because we still don't have a night landing.
Okay.
So day landing, they can put it down anywhere they feel safe. The night landing one, I'm just waiting for a check from Ross.
Perfect.
You want a pen?
It's in the budget process.
So ongoing?
Yeah, let's leave that on there.
Okay. Provide the emergency program coordinator with feedback on the emergency management plan gap analysis.
Given that my inbox was not flooded with your feedback, I'm assuming that everyone agreed with my findings.
It's a really good assumption to make.
Yeah. Hearing no concerns, I'm plowing ahead with the emergency management plan.
Okay. Follow up with all of the schools on Bowen Island regarding BC Shakeout Day, Corporal.
Well, that's for corporeal.
Oh!
Something. Just joking.
Oh.
Yeah, all schools, including BCC, were made aware of it and advised, and they responded back saying, "Oh, great, yeah, we'll do a little something. Doesn't have to be at the time exactly. It doesn't matter, just do it. Like, it doesn't matter to do it, just as three." But I know BIX did it and IPS did it. To what extent, I don't know. I wasn't there, but they were all made aware and they were very appreciative to be involved.
Thank you, Contrary.
And so, yeah, all four schools, yeah. And I encourage them to sign up and do their thing, but it's up to them, right?
Thank you.
Encourage people to register on the BC Shakeout website, everybody.
And we'll do it again this year.
Okay. Write a cheat sheet regarding how to communicate by radio and provide it to the emergency program coordinator for inclusion in the emergency communication plan. Bruce Steele. Ongoing?
Ongoing.
Ongoing.
And to be honest with you, I had forgotten about it. But
Ongoing.
ongoing.
I gotta deal with this here.
Thanks.
Ask the EDC to liaise with Tourism Bowen Island regarding tracking visitors' first languages. I don't know if she's done that.
We'll leave it on.
I may have, yeah, probably, so. I could try to follow up with that too. That's okay.
Robin is out of town, otherwise she would have been here today, but I'm sure she can speak to it at the next meeting. Okay, thanks, Steph, and everyone for your actions. Okay, so 6.1, as those of you who have been here before know, this is where we basically go around the room and give the updates from our perspective on anything emergency management related. So if you haven't been here before, please introduce yourself. If you don't have anything to say that's specific to emergency management, you can just pass. But so maybe start with Emma.
Oh, really? I think everyone knows me. I like community planner. I don't know, should I share the land use finding that we recently just...
Sure, I was hoping you'd speak about the GIS for EPC, the day that you went to.
Oh,
I know that was a while ago. And then
yeah.
DDM, if you want to, disaster debris management.
Sure. Not a whole lot to report. I went to an IPREM, so regional forum that focused on GIS data and how to better coordinate across the region for emergency management purposes. And nothing that's going to blow your mind. Essentially, we're not coordinated. We all have different data sets, different attributes, different things we take data on, different platforms, how we use it. It's all disjointed. So they are going to try and organize another one of these things and maybe talk about ways we could build a larger regional framework to be more coordinated.
How many platforms are there for GIS?
The main one is Esri. I'm not an expert I'm just the closest to one here, that's why I got sent. But I think there's some open source kind of GIS stuff out there that's gaining traction.
So did the majority of the Metro member municipalities use Esri?
I would say, yeah,
Okay.
majority, but not all.
Oh,
And even within Esri, there's like a lot of different ways you could use it. You know, there's online and there's custom built applications. Yeah, that's all I can report on that. Disaster debris management that we had a meeting on very recently. Did you want me to talk about that?
up to you. Not if you don't want to.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, a couple sites identified on Bowen, all municipal land, Veterans Park, Tates Hill Park, Aaron Sluggett Park, all our parks.
Parks.
Yeah, not to dispose of debris, but essentially act as transfer stations to hold the debris until we can get it off the island. I think we're gonna do a little bit more work on verifying the actual area that it's sufficient to do that function, and I was also going to follow up on our estimated amount of debris that's gonna be created based on North Van's algorithm, which only takes into consideration housing debris. But I will look into that.
I don't think we can't blame North Van for that one. I believe the algorithm came from the Metro engineers group.
Not to blame anyone,
Yeah.
there's no blame, just saying that's where the algorithm comes from.
When you talk, so what are you talking about when you're saying debris, sorry?
So what this algorithm is talking about is when there's a disaster,
Oh,
we're gonna get debris from our buildings.
okay.
Yeah. It doesn't take into account things like tree fall and vegetation, which may be a concern on Bowen.
Rocks, just
Rocks, lots of rocks.
lots of rocks.
Yeah, but we have an estimated amount of tonnage of building debris essentially, and we need a place to put all of that.
What is that estimated about?
Right now, it's
Over 400
473 truckloads.
400 truckloads.
473.
How big are those
25 ton
Okay.
trucks.
It's a really big truck.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm gonna double check the calculations and the actual area needed. But we're not sure where the source data came from for that number, so I'll verify that.
You're saying essentially all parks are designated sites?
No, there were 3 that were
Okay.
kind of narrowed down from discussions with the North Shore, what are they called?
That was actually done on Bowen's, that first meeting where we selected or identified those 3 sites was a workshop that we did here on the island.
Mhm.
And that would be all of the municipal lands that are flat and easily accessible and.
Yeah.
And so we went through the process of looking at basically the pros and cons of each, the environmental implications, you know, is it big enough, can you get a vehicle in there,
Okay.
that sort of thing. And we're undertaking this planning because Metro Vancouver member municipalities have been instructed to create disaster debris management plans by, I think it was the end of last year. So most of us are behind, but we're working on a sector plan with the North Shore municipalities and Lions Bay. So I had a group of us with representatives from different departments meet the other day and prove for truth the sites that had been identified. And like Emma said, she's working on sort of re-estimating the amount of debris we'll have and verifying that we agree with what the Metro Vancouver plan says. And then providing that information to NSEM for inclusion in the sector plan that they're creating.
Is any of this broken down into like hazardous material sites?
So, yes, they talk, all throughout the Metro plan, it discusses the different types of debris you might have, from animal remains to woody debris to different types of construction
Very
material.
specific.
And we sort of identified in our work that some of the parks are better for different kinds of debris because of their environmental sensitivities. So that hasn't been fully flushed out to any extent. We haven't written, you may put this debris at this park, but not this. It's not quite that specific, but it's just, we're just trying to do a little bit of the planning work in advance so that post-earthquake, we have some idea of where we're gonna put all the
Yeah.
garbage.
What were the 3 parks again? Oh, sorry.
Veterans Park, Kate's Hill Park, Aaron Sluggett.
Last one was which?
Aaron Sluggett, it's on the
Aaron's
west
Park,
side.
I know, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. And there was one more thing.
Land use?
Oh, yeah.
This question came up earlier, when you were looking for, places for emergency accommodation.
Group lodging provider.
Yeah, not necessarily in a state of emergency.
Correct.
And there was a concern that we may not be able to use some properties if they weren't zoned for such a use, which is also strange because there is no zoning for emergency lodgings, and I don't know of any other municipalities that do. But if there is an emergency, often like schools and gymnasiums and stuff like that are used. So we got some legal counsel to confirm that for a municipal use such as emergency lodgings, we do not need to enforce our own land use bylaw for our own use, if that makes sense.
So we were trying to determine whether we could use a facility as a group lodging facility if it wasn't zoned for group lodging or accommodating people. And if we weren't in a declared state of emergency, because as we all know, in a declared state of local emergency, we can. But without that legal authority, the owner had expressed concern about breaking the land use bylaw. So the legal advice was the municipality can choose to not enforce its own bylaws. The owner can't, I can't remember what the word was.
It is not an impediment, impediment to
It's
using.
not an impediment to use, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah,
Good to know.
thanks for that.
Yeah, that's all.
So welcome, John, from ENBC.
Hi, I don't have much to report. I just wanted to come over and say hello to everybody, meet everybody. Try to come out to these at least a couple times a year. I do support IPREM with their debris management stuff, so I'm at some of those meetings. Hopefully we'll run into each other there. Yeah, really just opening the lines of communication. Anyone in the room can obviously give me a call or email me if you have any questions. We've had a couple of occasions with, I guess, expenditure questions. We're going to talk a little bit more about lists, contact lists, etc. So
Locations list.
yeah. The door's open. In terms of what's coming up, something that might be interesting to folks in the room is our seasonal readiness workshops. We do one in the spring, one in the fall. That's coming up in April the 10th and 11th. Always good to meet folks from all over the region. Admittedly, I get the sense that this one might be a bit flood-centric, which might not be super duper useful, but maybe it is. We can talk about that. And again, it's just a great space to connect with folks. It'll be one day, so we do one in the valley and then one probably on the North Shore. So you'll get an invite for that on the pipeline. Besides that, there's the 2021 exercise that's coming up. I know everyone's familiar with that. So there's some planning kicking in. Are you coming to the first week of March? There's something happening.
I believe I'm away. I received the invitation but couldn't participate. This group actually was invited to the previous conference call and a few of us sat in on it. So we're going to stay on top of the planning as it moves forward for that.
Okay, so when I get that invite, I'll be sure to kick it over. But yeah, I think that was happening March 5th and 6th. Is the sort of first planning session for the 2021 exercise. More to come on that. Yeah, that's basically it. Doors open, phones on. Phones on? Phones connected?
Thanks.
Phone works.
Thank you for making the trip over.
Yeah, cheers.
Oops.
Not too much to report. Actually, there is a lot to report. Where do I start? We are making some incredible progress right now with a repeater system here on the island. We're going through a lot of other agencies to get there. It will be the largest amateur communication system in the Lower Mainland. As far north as Squamish, north of Sunshine Coast, how far I'm not sure. Courtney Comox, southern Vancouver Island, down into Washington State. So we will be connecting with a lot more members regionally, and this repeater system will also be part of the North Shore Emergency Management's amateur system as well. So that's coming down the pipe. Locally, not much to report locally. I've been pretty much busy with this other project and getting some goodies done for Jen, so that's about all from my end of things.
Bruce understates how much he's worked on in the last few months.
Yeah, they're all big projects, but they're all starting to come to fruition, and the folks over at Ecom are very, very accommodating at this stage of the game. So if everything goes well, it's going to be a real feather in the cap for Bowen Island. So looking forward to seeing it happen.
Thanks, Bruce.
The RCMP side, I think more and more it's becoming a priority. One of the priorities is having the emergency preparedness for the Sea to Sky corridor. So major events, natural disasters, or major investigational events. So I think the one thing that I noted in a recent objectives project we had to do was how crucial the relationship is with emergency services, specifically the RCMP in this situation, to be part of this committee. So something to pass on is that since I've gone in July, the next corporal should just be a given that the corporal is going to be part of this committee, at least if you guys accept us. But just to maintain that relationship, and because the RCMP, every single detachment has their own plan for every disaster, but I mean that's one of the things that's like last on our list to do. So we have a list, but it's not modified to be specifically for Bowen, right? So this is what we should be relying on. That's something that is unique to Bowen, and we should be part of it because we're all going to end up working together in case that ever happens. So yeah, just making that priority that every corporal from now on should have a seat at the table just to maintain that partnership.
Thank you. Yeah, we'd be sad, obviously, I'll be sad to see you go, but delighted to welcome the next person.
I'm leaving a comprehensive list of, what to do and whose house is here to check out the next one.
Cool.
Thanks, Paula.
I don't really have anything to report.
Okay. We've been doing lots of training lately.
I've been doing lots of training, but I report that every meeting, so nothing new.
Nothing really to report till after Tuesday or Monday night's meeting.
How's the heliport? So you're waiting for...
Yeah, we've had Helijet come over land, we've cleared the area. They're very happy with it. They just said what they would like is asphalt top on it. And we estimated that would be around $10,000, $10,000 to $15,000 to get that done. And they said as soon as that's in, they'll start proceeding with night landing again.
Okay, great.
And then Paul had mentioned earlier, I wasn't sure if you want to talk about the hydro.
Yes.
We were worried about hydro lines
Okay, we
and
talk about that?
what to do in a disaster. So, well, I was just gonna say, if there is ever like an area or something that's happened and we do have wires down everywhere and there's people wandering around, we can have the whole island shut down like right away. So it's just one phone call. So if we think there is, a hazard or danger to the public or whatever, because we've got so much stuff down, we can just shut the whole place down right away. So
so skipping to 7.2, in a disaster or emergency, sorry, Steph, we could, if there were multiple, you know, what happened on Miller Road times 10 or
Yeah.
20 across the island, shut down the island, simply work around the power lines in the trees, and then once they're cleared, they could repower.
Well, it all depends if even the hydro can get here, so.
So once you power, that's the thing, is, I mean, it gets into intricacies, I wonder, once you say power down, it's the whole reason I think we were asking to power down so we can open the, you know, access.
Main
roads, right?
arteries and stuff.
So
like
open
that,
those
yeah.
up, but that means that we'd also clear the wires, so it would be okay to touch the wires or whoever, to move them out of the way. But then,
No, no.
we can't touch the wires and move them out of the way?
Even though the whole island shut down, unfortunately, people with generators,
Yeah,
they can,
that's
they
right.
can, they can fire their generators up to power their house. It backfeeds a lot of those lines, so.
Oh, and then, so we wouldn't power it back on until hydro gets here?
No, but a person with a home generator, it can still charge,
It sends
The wires
power
are
back
always
onto the
considered a
line.
yeah.
So even if we shut down the whole island, we still can't clear the roads.
Unless, yeah, I would say, depending on if there's the wire, because a lot of times the wires are, say, in the bush, and we've had this before, and people in the trees on the road, and people all of a sudden say, well, I still have to get somewhere, and they start walking through the bush, they don't know where the wires are, so. But if there's no wires on top of any, say, logs or debris there, we can clear that, as long as there's no wires on top of anything like that, and they're 10 meters away.
Okay, so just to clarify, we can't touch the wires then, even
No.
if the power is off?
No. You could, and you might be safe, but unfortunately,
want to.
yeah. So we always, even, you know, when the wires are down, we always consider them live.
So we wait for hydro, right? And that's something, it's a big topic, I would imagine, because if the infrastructure of the terminal is damaged, that they can't get their trucks here, then, because of an earthquake, then we were completely relying on a BC Hydro truck to come here, right? Is there any trained BC Hydro personnel on island or anything like that?
You
of
can
the
bring
sort?
personnel by water taxi if the ferry infrastructure is down, and you could technically, hopefully, bring trucks by barge, but that's gonna take
Yeah.
days to
Right,
coordinate.
so, but we have a truck that could, or a bucket up there, or the
There's
tools that
one
we have to
truck
bring.
ongoing, is there?
Yeah, it's kept down at the work yard, or not the work yard, of their recycle, down in that, so.
So there's one hydro truck, and if they can send a crew, we can get them to the truck, and then they have the one truck on island. So just sending foot hydro workers
Yeah.
by water taxi. But post-earthquake, post-disaster, if that ferry infrastructure is damaged and we have wires down, I think people need to expect to be without power for a long time.
Right, but it's a good conversation to have, so we're not, you know, thinking, I mean, I'm not familiar, you guys probably are more than I am, but just, it's a good idea to bring hydro crew here, as long as they bring their tools and have that power, because,
Do we know that in the event of a major disaster, I mean, we have an earthquake here, I'm sure North
It's
Shore,
everywhere, yeah.
Vancouver, I mean, they're gonna be damaged. So is there any kind of, do we have any kind of knowledge in terms of what kind of priority BC Hydro would give to getting over here? Because there's gonna be demands on their service for the lower mainland.
there might be
So-
assigned specific areas that,
John from EMBC can probably speak to that.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I don't work for Hydro, but I doubt that very much. And you, like, certainly, I've not seen a list like that.
Yeah.
And certainly that list would not be made available to anybody. They might have it internally, but they're certainly not gonna show
Yeah.
us, right? I mean, you don't wanna know that you're 16th down the list.
Yeah, and I'm guessing we're gonna be low on their list of priorities.
But post-earthquake,
Expect that.
EMBC can control hydro.
Well, if we're talking, if there's a provincial deck, sure. So,
So
but
then-
these things
So then
were,
John decides.
yeah, exactly.
John.
Yeah, so provincial decks are going to be, if we're talking,
Earthquake.
you know, catastrophic
Yeah.
event, then there might be a deck, but again, that deck is going to be likely dealing with a lot of other things, and
Exactly.
re-electrifying local grids is gonna be way down on that list. So that's not gonna help in terms of prioritizing. So I kinda like where you're going with that, is, in the event of a catastrophic event, yeah, the lights are gonna be out for a while.
so it's generators then.
Yeah, so that creates some really interesting, you know, probably enough, I didn't really even think about the backfeeding of the electric grid, but yeah, that's gonna be
a major concern, as you well know, yeah. Yeah, I got nothing for you on that one. Nothing positive anyways, I'm afraid.
Okay, good to know,
Yeah.
good to know.
I would also say, and this is disheartening, but, you know, given our experience with the gas event this past little while, our utilities, their plans are not as like crazy robust as we might all hope. So to assume that they would have gone as far down the planning road as you're hoping for, I can sit here and pretty much say that I haven't done so. So it is the reality of emergency planning. Yay!
Is there anything through this conversation that you guys can identify as something we should be doing, other than encouraging residents to be as prepared as possible for being trapped in their homes without electricity for an extended period of time? Is there some action that I can take to move this forward?
I don't know if there's action, there's still a lot of public awareness regarding down lines, because the one on Miller Road, the 2 trees were crossed, there was lines on it. We were there, I think, 1:32 in the morning, and so we're down on the low side of it, had gone through, put barricades and stuff up. We had 2 young people climb through the trees, because they said, we just want to get home. And obviously, they had no awareness that those trees could have been completely live. So it's public awareness, still don't understand that just because the wire's on the ground, that it's not, or potentially could be alive.
Yeah, and public awareness of that, like safety, but also what our procedures are in this situation. Because everybody's gonna be asking questions and relying on you guys and BC Hydro. But in the long term, just like, well, what's, you know, we need to also, like right now, we need to know, but it's awareness of like, hey, if anything like this happens, worst case scenario, say, call Hydro, shut the power down, and, you know, but not just awareness to the public, but I guess to us, to our emergency preparedness team. But yeah, that's the best we can do, other than that, just, Hydro,
Do we
come
have
on.
any idea as to the degree of re-energizing, like backfeeding? Would one generator at X, whatever kilowatts, create to a certain distance? Is there any way to sort of calculate those
I
things?
personally don't know that. We've had Hydro over to give, like, talking to the fire hall and give them awareness presentations. And they're the ones that have said, and a lot of guys know anyway, but yeah, they didn't say the distance, you know. I guess, because when Hydro does come over, what they do, they isolate both ends of where the break is, because that way, even if, obviously they know if the generator is fired up, it's not gonna charge if it's broken in 2 spots, so.
Right.
I
So
have to
once
get-
they're over here, then they can control that?
Yes,
So
yeah.
then access is less of an issue once they get folks over to the
Oh,
other.
if they're on Bowen, they're,
yeah, they can
We're good.
isolate the area where they have to work in and not worried about someone firing up their generator.
so for
Whatever
your
else.
information, John, a tree came down on wires at 2:30 in the morning on Monday night,
110.
Sunday night in the morning, very early. And Hydro wasn't able to get here because the ferry was canceled due to bad weather. So people were trapped in their houses without power, some of them, and unable to leave the island even if they weren't trapped in their house. So it was quite the,
Yeah, there was a big
Quite the
chunk of the
morning.
island unaccessible,
yeah.
except for David Road, but that's
How large were the trees?
Oh, they're big.
I have photos.
They did quite quick work on that once they got there. I was impressed.
Yeah. Oh, Hydro?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it didn't, no, it's not.
Which is
Oh.
And they
encouraging.
wasn't the only one, there was like probably half a dozen or more like that across the island, so.
And ultimately, how did they get over here?
By ferry when it started running again.
The next morning, it was, I think, on the 8:30 or 9:30 run, the first 3 were canceled in the morning, so.
And who actually cleared the logs?
Hydro cut them, and then municipality went there and, like, Hydro cut them enough to get their truck in there,
I see.
and then municipality went with the machine, moved them off, and then just some local people went and got firewood.
Right on. For the next power outage, so that they'd have heat.
Yeah.
For Jen, I guess for us, just knowing the procedures,
Mm,
and again, that's all just education to the public about down wires and preparedness.
okay.
That's a lot to think
We'll
of.
continue to
It's like
spread our
kind of an
message.
Case studies.
It's an action item.
You guys have like a big windstorm on Sunday night?
Yeah,
Oh,
and it wasn't constant, it was like just gusts, but some of them were huge.
It's pretty bad.
The ferry was cancelled starting Saturday.
I work from home, I just kind of heard about it
Oh,
now.
you didn't know?
I thought you
didn't
didn't
know
come
about
in
it,
because of
no.
the ferries.
I heard nothing
That was
about
a
it,
great
so
day to stay
North
home.
Shore was kind of really quiet
It
and
was
calm.
surprising. Yeah, I
It was
went
so
all the way
nice.
to
Josh,
Horseshoe
did you
Bay
not
and didn't know
Oh,
until,
really?
yeah,
Oh.
that
No,
just
I
lived there for an
didn't.
hour.
Oh,
What do you know?
Okay, the Bowen's notification system.
you didn't get.
We were supposed to get that too?
By email. So
How
I'll
many
talk about,
households
I'll talk
were
about that
sort of
in
in their homes on that one?
What's that?
How many people were trapped on that side of the island?
Oh, Emma.
Probably a third of the island.
They-
I supplied the
Oh, I see.
property number, so there were roughly 600 properties, but not all of them
Have houses.
were developed yet. So it's hard to say exactly.
600 properties on that side
Of the tree.
Of the tree.
Wow.
One way in, one way out.
Yeah,
We don't have GIS data of our dwellings yet.
Oh,
we're working on that ring road, right?
Actually, the official community
Be done
plan
before the
for
fire hall.
Bowen Island indicates or states specifically that we will not put a
Ever.
road around the island. However, in my informal discussions with a couple of counselors, it's becoming more and more obvious that maybe a road with like a no post or some sort of barricade, so people can't use it during regular times, but in an emergency, having secondary accesses is obviously something that would improve our ability to cope. So I'm hoping that we can still work towards that while respecting the OCP.
Well,
It'd be nice to call it nature walk, nature road, nature maintenance
There's already
road.
routes established to join up a ring road.
Often through private property too, like David Road was, or the end of Foot Point. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna race through, oh, sorry, Rosh, would you like to give an update from your department?
Don't have a lot to update other than Tyler and I had gone for the EMBC finance course back in, was it October, November? It was a great course. People from smaller municipalities like ourselves basically focused on what kind of expenses are eligible, how to report a claim, and what kind of paperwork to fill out, and just activating an EOC and stuff like that. So it was a great course. I lost my hiking shoes on that trip. I left them at the hotel, so I'll remember that one. But
Where
we're looking for.
Where were you?
Oh, I ended up going to Merritt afterwards, and I
Oh,
came back
okay.
and I dropped something in the parking lot, and I went to pick it up. I put my shoes down, and then 2 weeks later I was gonna go hiking.
Gonna expense that now.
Sorry.
So, but yeah, other than that, there are, well, you talked about the $10,000 request or $15,000 request for helipad, so it's included in the financial plan process, and that'll hopefully get approved by council in March. So we'll be able to proceed with that after that.
And Ian, where is the location?
Right down, where the clubhouse is at the golf
Yeah.
course, so where they had the trailer there, the trailer's gone.
Yeah.
So we cleared a big area, and they want a 50 by 50 foot,
Just that.
yeah.
So
Temporary?
that's southeast of,
I mean,
Temporary?
temporary, but yeah, it'll be there for a long time.
Paved temporary.
cool. And is there gonna be a lighting facility, or will that be supplied by the fire department?
Fire department. What we'll have in the asphalt is, the little ones they have on the
Yeah.
road now, just in the configuration where we put our night landing lights.
I see.
So we're not out there with the tape figuring out, we know exactly where everything
So
goes,
they can
so,
just place the light on the
On
color
top of
part
that,
of
yeah.
the system.
Logistic ready,
yeah.
right on.
Other than that, back in November, I don't know if you've spoken about this at a previous meeting or not, but
No.
back in November, when we had the heavy rainfalls and the culverts gave out on Mount Gardner Road, we had put in a claim to EMBC. We had gotten a claim number just for the emergency repairs to get the road going again. So that was the first time I think we
I'm submitting it today.
put a claim in. Oh, okay,
I was
it's
waiting for
being
one
fired
more
off,
piece
so.
of information. information, so.
Jen
Good.
was instrumental in getting that together and stuff, so that was awesome. And then we did put the or we did get what do you call it,
Task number?
a task number for the anticipate, when the ferries were shut down and we had the major winds and stuff, we had activated the EOC at level 1.
Yeah, just.
But I mean, nothing came of it. It was, no costs were incurred or anything, but at least we were on standby, kind of waiting for that, so.
So the finance department and the EOC is starting to get a little bit of practice. That's good. That's great. It's nice that we got reimbursed for that too.
Oh, we haven't.
Not yet.
Let's not count those
Hopefully.
chickens.
Yeah, don't count your chickens yet.
Okay, thanks Raj, thanks everyone, very kindly. All right, I'm gonna race through some of the bits that I've been up to. This is in your agenda package, page 8. So the ESS program, unfortunately Carolyn couldn't be here because she's gallivanting around the southern US enjoying hot weather, so I can speak to the ESS program for today's meeting. We offered a pet services course in October, which is incredibly popular. I think people are more concerned about pets in an emergency than themselves. So there's going to be a Canadian Disaster Animal Response Team chapter forming here, we hope, or one of the volunteers has decided to take that on. We offered first aid to volunteers and members of the public in November and January, and both of those were full. So we're looking at continuing to
Really?
offer first aid to the community in 2019 and 2020. ESS is now meeting monthly. There was an appreciation dinner for volunteers in December, which was lots of fun, and we have a drill planned for next week. Resource acquisition. So we have, as some of you know, 10 reception centers have signed memorandums of understanding, 8 meal and grocery providers, and I think we're up to 7 lodging providers, and we're continuing to develop that list. And we're now going to start preparing for an exercise late this year or early next year that's funded by the UBCM grant that we just received. I think that's the next item, so I'll speak to that in a sec. The AED program, we continue to coordinate maintenance of 20 AEDs. And Rotary is working to get privately owned ones moved into public areas and continuing to raise funds for more AEDs across the island. The grants, as I wrote, continue to dominate my time at the municipality. So if I'm not applying for a grant, I'm implementing one or reporting on them now, and it's been lots of work, but lots of fun. As you can see, it's significantly increased the budget of the emergency program. So we've received 4, and we're waiting to hear about 3 more. I think one of the most interesting for this group will be the evacuation route planning grant. So assuming, I don't want to jinx it, but assuming we get that one, we can start evacuation planning as soon as the RFP is written. So Raj, if we receive that grant, we'll have to write an RFP for. Nick, go ahead.
Quick question for you. Have you included those in the budget submissions? Like, do I have them for inclusion in the financial plan for 2019?
No.
Okay, we should
Yes.
touch base, because I'm
Yes.
working on that in case we don't, because what we should do is anything that you might plan to apply for,
Yeah, I think
we should put it in there, okay.
we should double check.
We should double check, because that way we don't have to do a financial plan amendment, and that way when you do receive the grant, you can spend the money, because otherwise you can get a grant, but unless we go through council approval, you can't spend any of that money. So receiving money from somebody doesn't authorize us to spend money, council has to actually authorize us to spend money. So if we anticipate getting $100,000 in grants, even though we haven't applied for them, we should put them in our financial plan with an associated expenditure, and then we don't have to do a financial plan amendment later. We have the total number there. It authorizes us
Okay.
to spend. I hope that kind of made sense. Yeah, okay.
I should apologize
Little
now.
finance 101.
A different line of work for me.
But-
I'll make
So we
sure
should
that-
touch base, we should touch base offline to make sure that that's included.
Sounds great.
Okay.
So, yeah, looping back around there, the evacuation route planning, a little bit of that funding would have to go towards upgrading our GIS data or system, but most of it would be going towards consultants to draft a plan, and that would obviously involve pretty much everyone at this table, so.
Who's that through?
We haven't hired a consultant, we haven't.
No, the grant itself,
UBCM.
that is one of the UBC
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, that was one of the 4 funding streams. So we wait to hear on those 3 that are pending, and work continues on the 4 that we've been awarded. Public outreach since October, because that was the last time I've provided an update. So shakeout activities, the municipality participated, we had a display at the school, and we had quite a few volunteers riding the ferry, which was fairly well received, although we should probably go on the commuter runs next time. I put up a little Bowens table at the election, so outside of the municipal election voting place, just set up a table that said, leave your name here if you want to sign up for Bowens, and it was probably half an hour worth of work for me, and I got like 30 names, so I'm going to do that every election. That was really low effort, high reward.
Is that for Bowen ENS?
Yeah, for the
Good
notification
idea.
system.
That's great.
In November, we presented on personal preparedness to seniors keeping young, and in December presented again to the residents of Bowen Court on personal and emergency preparedness. And then I did some outreach at the first aid training, so people were here, I had a captive audience and spread my propaganda. The emergency weather shelter, extreme weather shelter, sorry, is operational. It's being run by Lookout Health and Housing Society. My understanding is that nobody has used the shelter so far of the 7 or 8 nights that it has been active. However, Lookout is going to continue to operate it for this season and then reassess after that. And we're lending support in terms of sharing information about activation, and we also have provided the emergency support services trailer for storage for now. And you'll notice it's parked outside the shelter if you drive by there. So training and development, so Carolyn and, so ESSD, sorry, stands for Emergency Social Services Director, and another volunteer went to the Emergency Social Services Director Conference on Vancouver Island and got a lot out of it. The fire chief and myself have both now received our local Fire Smart representative certification, which will be particularly useful if we receive the Fire Smart grant for 2018, because it allows us to do Fire Smart assessments that are recognized by that funder. We put new council members and staff through media relations, emergency communications training, which I think was well received. We sent a staff member to the Emergency Preparedness and Business Continuity Conference. I had initially signed up myself, but ended up getting deployed, and so sent someone in my stead. The EOC team met on November 22nd and did the things listed there. And then rapid damage assessment training took place January 18th. That class was full. We had quite a few structural engineers and architects attended, as well as construction workers from the island and a couple members of staff. And it was, yeah, very well received. People are keen actually to move forward with that, so have to try and find time in the work plan. Bowen, so our emergency notification system was actually used for the first time in a non-test scenario on Monday. I sent an email through the system at 2:30 in the morning advising people that the tree was down, so I sent it to the entire island, advising them that the tree was down at Miller Road with power lines and that there was no access to or from that part of the island. I opted against phoning and texting them at 2:30 in the morning to tell them that. I didn't think it was worth waking people up for. However, there were quite a few individuals who expressed gratitude because they checked their email before they left for work, and so were able to avoid, trying to get to the ferry and having to turn around. So I think that was pretty successful, and we now have 1,148 registrants, so at least 10 people signed up subsequent to that test, which is subsequent to that message going out. Sorry, Bruce, yeah.
It's okay, I interrupted.
No.
Is there any feedback that you get on the ENS system on whether or not it's been read, or there's no feedback of any kind?
Just tells me with email, just that it's been delivered.
Right.
There is more capability with the other avenues of communication. So it'll tell you, for instance, whether or not it left a voicemail, whether or not the person received the message if it's by voice but not by email.
I got 2 emails, because I think you sent one after it was cleared.
Sophie sent that one, yeah.
Someone sent it. And both of them had a link, it's like click here and mark as read.
Oh, okay. Did you click it?
On the first one, yeah.
Mm.
The second one I didn't have time.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you get a tally at the end of that.
I didn't see that, and I'll have to look more closely, actually. The system, I don't have a lot of time to like play with it and learn about it and test it,
I
and
don't know.
so I think it has a lot of capabilities that we're not actually using. But I'll look into that, because now I want to double check. Look here.
How many folks are on the island?
We have 36, just over 3,600 residents, but at least 600 of those are under the age of 14. So I'd say to get 100% enrollment in the system, you'd be looking at 3,000 people roughly. So we have about over a third of the island enrolled, which as far as I can tell is better than any other community I've ever encountered. So if you find a community that has more than 33% enrollment, let me know.
Or not?
And it varies throughout the season. I think in the summer we're over 5,000, are we not?
Oh, residents?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like almost
So,
double. That's true. You wrecked you popped my ball
Pardon?
there.
sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, we ran a test at Shakeout. It did some basic post-test follow-up, but there's a lot more to do in terms of cleaning up the system and testing functionality, hopefully one day. Night landings we just discussed. Thank you, Ian, for the update. The emergency management plan continues to get shoved to the side of the desk while other more urgent things come up. So I would still like to have it done in draft form by April for this group, but I'm working on it. So maybe.
But the Bowen ENS, do you have the ability to do specific texting to one person and then email everyone?
Yeah.
Someone, because for police, it would be good for, at least for me to be aware
Oh, sure.
of it, because then I get a text. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. We can actually set up a group. So take all the RCMP officers on the islands, contact info, save them as RCMP, and then just make sure that every message, yeah, let's talk about that. Because I for sure could have texted to let you know. Crisis communication plan, that's nothing new. We talked about disaster management already. The emergency guide for residents got published. I wish Sophie were here because she really can take all the credit for this little beauty. So this was done at the direction of the Emergency Program Executive Committee who wanted to see something like this, and it'll be included in the phone book when it's published this year to try and get it out to more people. So I'll be taking it to all the public outreach I do, but let people know it's here, share it with your friends, give it as birthday gifts. Just try and get it out there. Professional development, sorry, you guys are probably not super interested in this. This update is what I provide to the committee that I report to, so probably nobody minds what I do. And then events or responses, so Raj spoke to most of this, but we had a flood in late November. We're sending a claim into EMBC. We had a wind event in late December that actually ended up being a non-event because the ferry started running again, or did the last run, which was nice. And then I prepared this before this week, but obviously we had our Monday response, which was really just fire and public works, with the exception of me firing off one email at 2:30 in the morning. So that is what is happening on Bowen Island. Does anyone have any questions about what I've been up to? Straightforward. So we're almost done. 7.1 emergency social services grant received. So this is basically just relevant because part of this grant is going to fund an exercise, an emergency social services exercise. If anyone's interested in participating with that, either individually or as an organization, please get in touch with me. Let me know sooner rather than later, because we're looking at designing that exercise in the next couple of months. And if you want any more details about that, I'm happy to provide them. In addition to the exercise, the grant is also going to fund more training for emergency social services volunteers, as well as the purchase of a few additional supplies, mostly for the trailer, but also a satellite phone and bits and pieces that we didn't acquire in the last grant intake. And
When
then,
did you, could I interrupt, when are you thinking of holding the exercise, Jen?
late 2018 or late 2019 or early 2020.
November, December-ish, something like that?
I'd imagine so. I'll start working on that this month, because we'll have to pick a date pretty soon.
Maybe I can squeeze in an exercise design course with JBC before we do that.
Of course, yeah, please,
Yeah,
go for it.
okay.
Anyone have any questions about that grant? So I think we received notice about that just a few weeks ago, which is why it's on the agenda here. Do we need to, I think 7.2 was addressed earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Down for our protocol.
Guys.
Yeah, so just an update today. I didn't particularly need anything from the group, but we hadn't met in a long time, and I wanted to touch base and let you know we're all still here.
Would we be doing our own running our own exercise come November, like as Bowen Island?
No,
Or-
I applied in the EOC grant that you see there, number 7.
Yeah.
I applied for a EOC exercise, so that would involve the municipality, municipal staff, fire, RCMP. The ESS exercise is going to be more volunteers with maybe a little bit of
Okay.
staff involvement.
Where I was going with that, and what I was wondering was whether there might be, because this would be the first time we're doing this, whether there might be any synergies with trying to coordinate with the North Shore, because I think in November, West Vancouver, the City of North, and the District of North Van have traditionally for the last few years done an emergency services exercise, either simulating an earthquake or some kind of emergency event. And it's usually around the 2nd or 3rd week of November that they do that. So I'm just wondering if it might be worth looking into and seeing if we could tag on to that and
Great.
conduct our exercise at the same time and be part of that. It might be a learning opportunity.
Or watch them do it.
Or, or participate in their exercise.
I've had experience with the North, I'm a member of the North Shore team.
Oh, okay.
And the last one we had was Windshield, which was quite large. And yeah, you're right, it was towards the end of the year. And we had a lot of observers. There was people that did observe. So there's all, I'm sure that can be accommodated if we want to put observers in there. There was observers in the EOC and there was observers in the field and so on. And that was multi-jurisdictional too. It was a really big one. Coast Guard, like all the big players were in that one. I think it was something like 2.1 to put the whole thing together. It was big bucks.
Thank you. Yeah, we work with NSCM regularly. I just attended actually some ESS training they were putting on to pilfer ideas for training our team here. So I'm regularly leaning on them, and I'll definitely communicate with them about what their ESS exercise is and if there's any way we can somehow make them work together. Thank you. Okay. Next meeting's already decided, no information items. Anything else before we adjourn? I really didn't get that done as quickly as I hoped.
We've done a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and participating and everything you're doing in the sidelines between meetings. It's appreciated.
Thank you, Jen.
We're adjourned.